Hello, fiber friends. Welcome to the JillianEve Podcast. Now, why am I calling this a podcast and not just a regular JillianEve tutorial or project video? I wanted to have a place to give updates and talk about different things that I'm doing, including some sewing projects, some gardening things, all of that kind of stuff. So if you're into a little bit of randomness and a lot of fun, and definitely some spinning and fiber arts, then you're in the right place, because today we're going to talk about all these different things that I'm up to, but I have some pretty interesting things I think to share. Hopefully you think so too. So grab something to drink, maybe a warm beverage if you're experiencing the early bits of fall, and a project, and let's get chatting. Start with some sewing projects I've had going on lately, because I'm wearing one of them and you might be wondering, hey, what are you wearing? So let's talk about it. The shirt that I'm wearing, I made this a couple years ago. This was just I don't remember what the pattern is. I'll put it up, so there's a reference for that if you're interested. It's just a t-shirt pattern, but the vest that I'm wearing is the Forager vest from Sew Liberated. Here's the front cover page image of it. I'll back up a little bit so you can see what it looks like on me. It has huge pockets, which I absolutely love. Here's the back. It has a cute little pleat up at the top, a little reverse box pleat detail, which is cute, and I love that. And then here is the front of it. So let's talk about my experience sewing this vest, because I have a few tips for my plus size friends, because this is listed as a one size fits all, but there are instructions to make a couple of tweaks to make it fit better. So I did that. Let's talk about it. So the adjustment that I made was across the back, and the instructions were very clear about how to do that, and it's across the back to widen the back. And it was very simple to do that, just adding onto the pattern pieces. The thing I don't quite love so much about it is that there's no adjustment for bust in the front, and so I feel like I sort of have this weird gap as it like pulls in here. Now I know that the style of it is meant to be very loose and you just kind of throw it on and it's like layers of baggy cute linen things. That's sort of the vibe that it has, and it definitely does that, but I like to put a little clip here because isn't this cute for the fall? And it's these little elf leaves clasp. I like clasps and I want to have that too, but then it pulls here. So I'd like to make it again, but I think I'm going to do a little bit of adjustment in the front so that it just covers better and looks like it fits my body better. I have some other fabric that I want to use, and I knew that this would be a little bit of an experiment. I don't think it's terrible, and I will wear this kind of casually around if I need to have pockets for something, but I'd like to do a little bit of an adjustment to the pattern, and I want to do it again maybe with this fabric, because I really feel more comfortable when I wear layers, and so I want to have more layers in my wardrobe. And I got this beautiful linen fabric on Etsy. I'll have links in the description if you're looking for stuff. So this is from Isol Linen, and it came from Lithuania. It looked very, very bright in the listing, and so I wasn't quite sure, but when I got it in person, I was like, oh yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. I mean, I love bright colors, but I really love this. I think it's gorgeous. So I have enough of it to do this pattern. I think it's 1.5 yards maybe. And so I'm gonna just redraw the pattern pieces for the front and just widen the bust. That shouldn't be hard. It's just putting a little extra fabric on there, and I kind of have this one sort of as a mock-up, a wearable mock-up, I guess. So I'm excited. I will show you how that turns out later, maybe in the next podcast. I don't know if I'll get it done. So yeah, that's my current sewing project. Now let's talk about my current knitting project, because I am in the body of this sweater. This is my next hand-spun, hand-knit sweater. It is Night Owl. Look at these owls. Aren't they adorable? So this fleece came from Lily from English Blue Ribbon Farm. They are local to me, so this is a local fleece that I processed and everything, and I will eventually have a video on that when it's all finished up. This is from Bad Wolf Girl Studios. So here is the cover picture of this pattern. I think it's so cute. And this does go up to bust measurements up to 72 inches or 182 centimeters. So that is really cool that it has a good range of sizes, and I was able to fit one that hopefully will fit me. I'm pretty sure it will. I measured and tried this part, so it's looking good so far. I'm excited. And I was just thinking about a good metaphor for what it's like when you get past the color work and you get into the body part. You've divided out for the sleeves and you're down into the stockinette body part. And I feel like it's when you get out of city traffic and you hit that highway and it's a beautiful day and you could just put the windows down, maybe open your sunroof if you have one, and you just go. You just go. That's what it feels like to do just round and round and round of stockinette. So I'm hoping to make quick progress. I would like to get this done by the end of October because I feel like the owls are perfect for spooky season. And speaking of spooky season, I have my cute little moon earrings on today. I know people are going to ask. I got these at the Oddities and Curiosities Expo. I don't have an online link for them. I got them in person. But they're fun, so I want to have my moons and my owls, and I just feel like it's the perfect sweater weather, spooky season type of project. I did talk about doing another cardigan with the stuff that I had dyed with Easter egg dye. I am working towards that. That's hopefully going to be my November project. So I will have this done for October and hopefully the next one for November. We'll see. I have so many projects. We'll see if I get there. And this is just a fun little joyful thing. October is my birthday month and I got a postcard. It came from the Handweavers Guild of America and it says, "L'amazing birthday," with a llama. He's so cute. I love it. So thanks HGA for that. That is awesome. It's a little fun joy. Today in the podcast, I have a very special Fiber Friend interview with Fossil Fibers. And this was more like a phone call than a video call. So I will put something up for you to look at. And you can join me as we listen to this fantastic interview that I had with Fossil Fibers. Today, I have a wonderful fiber friend with us from Fossil Fibers. Corey, would you just give us a little introduction about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Corey Hancock. I'm super glad to be here talking with you. I got started as a knitter and crocheter for 8 years, and I tried talking myself out of spinning for so long because wheels are expensive.
They are.
But when I finally got one, I was super hooked. A few months in, I was gifted a drum carder from my neighbor who just so happened to be a long wool, a Lincoln Shepherd that was retired, and she didn't want her carder anymore. And that started off in a really quick landslide where I was learning everything I possibly could about carding and how to process fleece. And I actually started my business less than a year after beginning spinning.
You went for it. That's awesome.
Absolutely. We decided that we wanted to work with more breed variety because I'm a person with ADHD and I was completely bored with the stuff that you could find commercially. And fleece was like quickly the best option to go with that. But I didn't anticipate how much that decision would impact us down the road. And we've been able to make such a difference in the community by filling gaps in shepherd support as a result.
And that work that you're doing, I think, is really, really incredible. Would you like to share with us a little bit about the work you're doing educating shepherds and kind of what areas you see shepherds needing a lot of help with and how you are filling in those gaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Farm support has become just such a huge passion. We are mostly finding gaps in education for them on what to do with their wool even or where to sell it. They also sometimes don't have quite the community connections, especially not between spinners and the wool producers themselves. And I absolutely love being the middleman between our community and theirs. So we have an entire huge network of farms all across the country with a huge variety of breeds that we can connect people to. And we always share back projects that our spinners are making back with the shepherds so they can see what their wool is being used for. And they get so much joy out of that.
I can attest to that. I've done projects where I've tagged back to the shepherd where I got the wool from, and they are thrilled. So I want to reiterate that point to any spinners who are watching this. If you're working with fleece and you know where it came from, talk to that shepherd and show them your projects. They absolutely love to see what it becomes.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference for them too, in like terms of motivation. And with some of that too, we do a lot of consultation work with our company. So we've traveled to several farms in our community to help get them on the right track with different sheep management so they can have cleaner and more marketable wool, or helping them find avenues on where do you even sell this. One farm, she's about an hour away from us. I am so proud of her. We started from the most hay-filled gross fleece you can think of. And within a year, we were able to get her to super clean, white, pristine wool. And now she was able to double the size of her heritage breed Rommeldale flock by finally profiting from them. So she went from single purpose meat only, and now she sells meat, wool, and hides. It's made a huge difference for her family.
That is amazing. So I also want to say I'll have your information linked in this video in the description. So if anyone's watching this and they are a shepherd who's interested in consulting services, they could reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing that. We also do like a bi-monthly fleece subscription, and that helps us feature and market different farms. I really love, because I send out about 2 ounces of fleece that's been washed and handpicked so you don't get any of the nasty stuff. And then we do like silks and flax and that kind of thing as additives to make your own bats. And it's a really good, small, easy project and a good fun way to do breed variety participation for spinners. And I super love being able to do that. And we make a really good point in our shepherd support too, to pay at or above asking on all of our fleece. So if they approach me and they've got $10 a pound on fleece, but that is a $25 a pound show fleece, we make sure that we tell them.
That's good. That's part of education. I love that you do that. That's wonderful.
And it's definitely part of what's made more impact too, of just letting them know that, hey, you have so much value in what you're growing and your animals. I can tell as soon as I get a very nice fleece how loved they are. And it's just such a big deal to me to be able to help them know that too, that we can see that as spinners.
Absolutely. Definitely. So when we're working with raw fleece, part of the whole process to get it to be spun into something beautiful is that we're going to have to scour it. So would you like to share with us some of your scour method and how you go about that? Because that's
Absolutely.
a process.
It is. And I absolutely had so much frustration my first year working with it. We would often be left with things like those sticky spots way deep in the fleece, or a few months later, it would suddenly be sticky again after feeling clean initially. And I know that we all struggle with that one. So I reached out to Long Draw James. He has a PhD in surfactants, and we developed an entire scour method that's super easy to follow. It was really important to us to make it free access, and that's all right on my blog if you just search scour. In addition to that, I spent about 8 months developing and collecting all the weird things that you can find in fleece. So we've got just a huge post resource, and it contains everything from breaks to canary stain to ticks, you name it. If you can find it in a fleece, I'm trying to get it documented in one area.
That is a fantastic and much needed resource.
It is. I definitely struggled learning it myself to start, just because it's so piecemeal and everyone has just little anecdotes here and there all over the place. So it's been really nice being able to have that and our scour method compiled and presented with scientific facts to back it up.
I very much think of this sort of as our new oral history, except that it's the internet, because that's the tool we have now, because this is all stuff that previously people would have grown up around and shared with each other. If they were working in wool in any way, they would have known it from the people who were doing it around them. We don't have that anymore. And so for you to share this resource that we can reference is just, I can't understate how valuable that is. So thank you.
So glad. And I also am a history buff for the wool things, and there's definitely been a gap of lost information between generations because we stopped teaching this, just like you've said. I have also started a Goodreads group where we are all sharing different history books on the bookshelf in there. So everyone can pick up and learn about everything from the Highland clearances to Navajo weaving, you name it, it's there. I have, I think, almost 60 books on there. So you've got quite a bit to dig through if you want to.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So tell us about sort of the other side of fleeces, sort of, I guess, the immediate information that many shepherds get is when they take their fleece to be judged. And you've been involved with some fleece judging. So
Yes.
Would you tell us what is that like? Because that is definitely something I'm probably the most unfamiliar with.
Yeah. Have you ever been to a show to see it be judged?
I have, but as very much a bystander, and I wasn't entirely sure of what was going on because there's so much where they're touching and handling the fleece and then judging. And I don't know what are you feeling? What are you feeling for? What are you looking at? What's the criteria?
It depends what judge you're viewing, because judging is really just opinion. I mean, your fleece can do fantastic in one show and then the next day totally bomb in the classes. And it's all quite relative to what it's competing against. I first saw Letty Klein, who is one of the originators for BFL sheep to be in the States. She was judging the Michigan Fest show, and I got so hooked on that and was trying to pursue that a little bit, but I got requested to go and judge the Jacob Sheep Breeders Association fleece show in Estes Park, and we flew out to Colorado and did that just this past June. It was a massive honor to meet all the shepherds and see all the wonderful fleeces, and we mostly did the judging part privately and then did a presentation afterwards about like who placed where. And I started out with giving like a vague commentary, I guess is what you could say, because I wasn't quite sure what they were looking for from me. But as we went on, the host and I realized that what they really wanted education on what their fleeces are like, what qualities they're looking for, just like you're asking now. And we were able to lay out one of the fleeces and be able to show them exactly how you're supposed to roll it to get it in the bag so that presentation looks correct. That is kind of, you want the cut sides out, and it can look really, really appealing that way, just even from walking down a market aisle and seeing it on a table. And that kind of thing is a really good way to draw in your customers as a shepherd. We were able to teach them about drape and how different springiness of their fleeces react, because we had so much variety in just this about 30 or so Jacob fleeces, which is a really great example and way to look at all of the range a breed can carry. So fun.
Yeah, because with Jacob, you're also dealing with color.
Yes, you're dealing with color, and then they have quite a loose breed standard too. So they can go from having nice, fine, crimpy fleeces. Those are what we would call an improved fleece. And then you can have your very primitive, spongy types of fleeces, and neither is better than the other. They are all both great for different types of projects.
Yes, I reiterate, no bad fleece, just the right fleece for the right project.
Yes, exactly. But there was definitely some debate among the shepherds on whose were better. And I was like, guys, what do you like in your flocks? You were doing correct. And what do your customers respond to? then that is what you are going to continue doing and be happy with. But it was really excellent being able to do that one-on-one questioning with them. And it was honestly the coolest thing I've been able to do yet. It opened my eyes to more gaps in the industry. And I'm already working on ways to fill those gaps in the future, but I'm not quite ready to announce them yet.
Well, that is very exciting, and I will definitely be watching for future announcements of all of these wonderful things that you're doing. It's just absolutely fantastic. Let's circle back to you on a personal level.
Mhm.
What do you love to spin? What is the thing that, really, really gets you
Excited?
Yeah, excited.
There is nothing like spinning a hand comb fleece. I love my carders to death, but my combs are my best friends when it comes to my own. And I restore antique wheels as well. And I have 5 Canadian production wheels.
5.
Yeah, 5.
And those are big boys.
They're big ones. And they're all working. And that's my favorite thing, to just sit. And I started figuring out long draw just because those wheels are really suited to that type of thing, because antiques are quite specialized.
Yes.
But definitely long wools, hand combed, especially a Romney. That's my favorite.
I've been hearing a lot of Romney love in the community lately. I think a lot of people are really falling in love with some of the more sturdy breeds because, like you said in the beginning, we sort of get inundated with commercialized merino, and there's just so much character that we miss out on.
Absolutely.
When that's the only thing we spin. And Romney has some character in a wonderful way.
It does. And so do like Coopworths and Finn. Finn is another one that I love. And you're going to notice all the ones that I love to death have the French fry crimps.
What about Cormo? How do you feel about
Cormo? Is really nice. It is a merino derivative.
It is, but it has more of the French fries. So that's why I was curious.
It does. And you hear it described as buttery, and you don't realize just how buttery it is until you get it in your hands. And that is the perfect term for it. But yeah, definitely another one. We've handled almost 300 fleeces in the last 2 years from almost any breed you can get your hands on in the States.
I can't thank you enough for joining me here to talk about these things, because all of this, keeping these things alive and all of the education that you're doing and stuff, like I keep saying over and over again, this is happening in community. And that's exactly what this is about. I have one last question for you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Where did the fossil come from in fossil fibers?
I absolutely love dinosaurs to death.
Were you a dinosaur kid?
I was. And not only, it's kind of evolved because I started getting into all the history and the antiques. So starting out, it was just dinosaurs, but now this is quite a fossil craft that we get to participate in and revive and teach each other about. I mean, all those posts I was just talking about, they are regularly updated with the most relevant information I have, so that I am learning right with everyone else that's with me.
That's
wonderful. Very much a community effort.
That's wonderful. I wonder how many of us were dinosaur kids who then translated learning all about dinosaurs into fiber and sheep breeds. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Corey, for joining me. I just really appreciate you sharing all of this knowledge so much. And again, everyone go check out Fossil Fibers. All of that information will be in the description. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Let's have a quick story time. I have a spinning friend who lives locally to me, whose name is Robin. And Robin had a skein of yarn that was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And there's nothing more frustrating than hand spinning 8 ounces of gorgeous fiber. And then you just go to wash and finish it, and it was pink everywhere. It was like it was like True Crime with Barbie or something. And so Robin posted some pictures of it, and I saw it and I thought, I would love to try and fix this. So I got the skein from Robin, and here is my adventure in fixing a bleeding skein of yarn. So Robin brought it to me, and Robin had already done a vinegar soak, I think 2 vinegar soaks with it, because that's typically the first thing that you would do if you have something that's bleeding, is you would try to make sure that everything was set. So I'm not trying to call out the dyer who did this. That's between Robin and them, whatever she wants to do with that. But so I'm not going to say who it was or anything like that, because mistakes do happen. But the point is that if there's a mistake that I find in my stuff, I'll know exactly what to fix, because I know my process and I can figure out where things went wrong. But to have a mystery bleeding skein of yarn is a challenge, because I don't know what dye they used. I don't know how they applied it. I don't know if they measured their weight of goods or any of that. I don't know any of that. So it's a bigger mystery. So I wanted to try the challenge. So this might help all of you if you get a skein of yarn that bleeds. Here is what I did to attempt to fix it. The first thing I did was put extra citric acid in a pot of water, and I warmed it up on the stove, and I put the yarn in it. I brought it to steaming, almost boiling. There were a couple little bubbles on the bottom, but I didn't have a rolling boil. It doesn't need to be that hot, but it was definitely steaming almost at a boil. I maintained that temperature for a good 20 minutes, and then I just let it sit overnight and cool down. I also threw in some just plain regular, this is Patton's Classic Wool. So I just skeined up a little bit of it, and I threw that in there because I wanted to make sure that we had dye that could bond with the wool, essentially, that maybe there wasn't an accident using a fiber reactive dye, which is meant for cellulose fibers, as opposed to an acid dye, which is meant for protein fibers. I'm pretty sure that this was an acid dye. It did set in the yarn that I put in there, and I also wanted to see like how intense this would come out, like how much extra was floating around in the water. So this was my little dye mop, and so yes, I can see that it did take on wool, and there was quite a bit of it left floating around. So after we did that overnight, then I put it in some water, and it was still bleeding. So at that point, I know that for sure it was set correctly, because it had the acid and it had the time and it had enough heat, but it didn't take up all that dye, which says to me that all of the spaces in the fiber that could latch onto a dye and hold that color had been used up by color, which means that we had too much dye for the amount of fiber. It can happen. It can happen. It was a mistake. It can happen. So next, how do we clean out all of this extra dye that's just bleeding and floating around everywhere? How do we get rid of that? Well, I have some Synthropol, which I don't usually use. I use if I have to. It is an industrial detergent. Dyers use it. I do use it if I'm going to mordant something. When things go through a mill, there are oils that are applied to the fibers after picking to prepare them for carding or combing or whatever comes next. And so when you get mill spun fibers and you spin straight off of that or whatever, there's oils in there, and that can inhibit things from attaching. So especially if you're doing like natural dyes, or you're doing something where you want a very uniform color all over, it is a good idea to scour that first. And by scour, I just mean use some detergent to really clean it up and get those oils out of there to make sure you can get everything well dyed. But the other side of that is that that detergent also helps to carry away the dyes in the water so that it doesn't redeposit and kind of get on top of the fibers without really bonding to the fibers. So I washed it with the Synthropol. And then I washed it with the Synthropol again, and it was still bleeding, and it just kept bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. It was a lot. It was so much. And I thought, oh my goodness, will we ever find the end of this bleeding pink dye? So I washed it twice with Synthropol, and then because I hate the smell of Synthropol, I did it again with just regular water, and then I did it again with soak. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do one more, and then I'm going to have to call it because it's a lot. I'm sorry, Robin. It was so much. And then that final one, it appeared clear, And I even sent Robin a picture and said, look, success. And it was just the vaguest bit of pink. And so I just let it sit there. And then when I swirled it around, there was more pink coming off of it after that. So we did our best. Oh, and if you're wondering what the fiber content of this was, I think Robin said it was wool, merino maybe BFL. Some type of wool, not superwash, just wool. And then it also had some bamboo rayon and silk. So that's kind of another important thing to note, because silk and wool are protein fibers and they will pick up acid dye, but bamboo rayon is a cellulose-based fiber, and so that needs a fiber reactive dye to pick up the color. And so maybe that was part of the miscalculation because of the fiber blend. I don't know. And then also it's possible that, you know, whoever was dyeing this tried to use a union dye. A union dye is like RIT. RIT has components in it that are meant to dye protein fibers like wool and silk, and then also cellulose fibers, so that whether you're using RIT for a pair of jeans or a wool sweater, it's going to dye both. But what you will see for sure is exhaust in the water, because you'll be seeing the color that is meant for the other type of fiber. And so with RIT, you're always going to be rinsing away dye because it's a union dye for both. Unless I guess you put jeans and a wool sweater, that would be the same color. And again, I don't know if that's what they tried to do here. If they knew that that cellulose fiber was in there with the bamboo rayon and they tried to get it all dyed. I don't know what they did. That's a big mystery. But Robin, your spinning is beautiful, truly. Thank you for letting me experiment and try and solve the mystery of the bleeding yarn. I did my best, but I would say just keep in mind that this will continue to bleed with whatever you put it into in the future. In our last podcast, which was 2 months ago, I promised to do a giveaway with a darning loom from Katrinkles. I do sell these looms in my web shop. I also have fibers and shacked products like spinning wheels and stuff in my web shop, so go check that out if you're looking for some tools, some fun things, a spinning wheel maybe. If you want a spinning wheel from Shacked for the holidays, get those orders in immediately so that they have time to go into production and get shipped out to make it before the big holiday rush. They are currently about 5 or 6 weeks out. So anyway, just a little self-promotion, shameless self-promotion there. But anyway, so last time I promised to give away, and then we didn't have a podcast for a little bit. So I think it's time to draw for the giveaway. So here we go. I'm just picking a random comment from the comments that were left on that video. Congratulations. I will leave a response on your comment. Go ahead and send me an email and I will get this little darning loom in the mail and off to you. Congratulations. I've been having some great conversations with people over on my Instagram. It's JillianEve FA on Instagram. And I put a thing in my stories where you can reply to a question, and I said, what are your spinning questions? I'll answer some of them in the next podcast. Go ahead and leave me your questions. So we're going to just rapid fire run through as many of these questions as we can, as quickly as we can. I hope that I give you a good answer. So here we go. The first question is, what direction, S or Z, is flax supposed to be spun? And this is from Walking Panic Attack. I feel that. So what direction is flax supposed to be spun? Now, flax is really interesting. A lot of times I've seen that it's recommended for flax to be spun counterclockwise, which is with S twist. Whether it's plied or not, of course, depends on what you're going to do with the flax. Sometimes flax is left as a singles for weaving. So why spin it in S twist, and what evidence do we have that it was meant to be spun it with S twist? Well, for one, some of those old antique flax wheels are designed, they're built to only go counterclockwise, and they are best spun that way. They want to spin that way. You can really feel the wheel pulling in that way. I have a Country Craftsman like that. We're going to talk about that. That gets a whole video because that wheel blew my mind. We're going to talk about that soon. So that's one reason. But another thing that I've heard is about how the plant grows. And as it is sort of turning, as it follows the sunlight in the sky, and it kind of gets a corkscrew to it as it grows. I've heard that just the shape of the fiber, which you can't really see or feel, it's like deep in the structure of it, that it does better to be spun counterclockwise, but then the opposite in the southern hemisphere, because it would see the sun kind of going the other way, right? Because one way, but the other way. So southern hemisphere grown flax would need to be spun clockwise, and then northern hemisphere flax would be spun counterclockwise. Now, is it supposed to be done that way? Does it have to be done that way? You know, I say spin the way that gets you the yarn you want. If your spinning wheel really wants to go counterclockwise, you know, and you're fighting your tool, make it work for you. But if you're personally comfortable spinning with Z twist, or if your spinning wheel really wants to go in a Z direction, then spin with Z twist. That's clockwise twist. So here's a little thing in case I said something backwards. Pause it and take a look at this graphic. Hopefully that'll help clear that up. So is it supposed to be spun counterclockwise? Maybe. Does it have to be? Not necessarily. I hope that's enough of an answer. So many of these are going to be, it depends. Try it out, see what you like, but we'll do our best to give some kind of an answer here. Our next question is from Stina, and Stina says, how do you know how much twist is too much twist in your yarn? This is a great question. So how much is too much is going to, again, it depends. It'll be a personal thing. It'll depend on what you want to do with your yarn. If I'm spinning for, say, a rug, I might put a lot of twist in that. If I'm spinning for a fluffy, soft, warm woolen sweater, I might put less twist in that. So there's absolutely going to be a spectrum of twist that you can have, and when it gets to be too much will depend on you. So how can you tell? One of the things you can do is, as you're spinning, you can take that strand and take the tension off of it, relax it a little bit, and you should get pigtails. There's twist energy in it. It hasn't been set. You will have some pigtails. So look at how quickly those pigtails pop up. Are they like sproing everywhere, or are they just kind of like, blah, we're gonna twist, right? And that can give you a sense of how much twist energy is in there. If you feel like they're really curling up and it feels dense and it kind of feels ropey and you don't want that, then just make a mental note that, oh, that means I have too much twist, and then back off, which means either draft it faster, use a larger whirl, treadle slower, so that you're putting less twist into that space of yarn before it gets onto your bobbin or wound onto your spindle. Right? So you're going to be checking it and testing it as you go. And this is why I will always recommend swatching, because you want to finish that yarn and see if it's the way that you want it to be for the project or purpose that you want it to have. So, and that's the thing, just take some tension off and let it, see how those pigtails are, how quickly they form, and that should help you get a sense of it. Next we have Lady Stardust, who asks, can you talk about spinning different types of fiber? Are there different approaches? I love this question, and we could write books about this question, so I'll keep it very short and to the point. Yes, there are different approaches, even within different breeds of wool. Also for silk, for cotton, for flax. All of them require a little bit of a different approach because they're different materials, and it behaves differently when twist is applied to it, and it behaves differently in the way that it's being drafted and prepared to be spun. So yes, they need to be approached differently. If you're interested in a big deep dive on this, I have done the Certificate of Excellence in Hand Spinning, and I've documented that whole project, the whole process, and I have like, I don't know, 50 some videos of each different skein of yarn, and it covers everything. It covers cotton, silk, alpaca, like blends, wool, different breeds, all of it. It's all on my Patreon, and you can go and sign up for the tier that has the COE videos, and you can watch the whole thing, and it's like hours spinning and deep dives into all of that. So that might be a place for you to go. But otherwise, I'll say try the different fibers. See how it responds for you, your body, your style of drafting and everything, and your equipment. And see what feels good and what gets you the yarn that you want. Ultimately, that's what you'll need to look at to make sure you're on the right track. I hope I'm getting these names right. Majestasticar. Best way to avoid ropiness when spinning from a comb top as a beginner. All right, so that goes back to our did we put too much twist in it question. I do have a video about spinning singles without overspinning them, so I will link that because I think that's a helpful demonstration. But the ropiness comes from having a lot of fibers packed in there, which they are with comb top because they're all aligned and so they pack in very nicely, and then having too much twist. I think that beginners often put too much twist because that twist is the glue that holds the fibers together, and everyone is scared of their yarn falling apart. And so a lot of times, beginners will kind of fuss with the draft a little bit extra, and so that twist is building up, and they'll feel like they want to have a lot of twist in there so it doesn't fall apart, and so that twist is building up. And so for a beginner, I would say get it through your hands quicker if you can. Slow down how much twist is going into it, and that will start to help. I think the other thing that really helps with comb top is to spin from the fold. If you want it to be fluffier, spinning from the fold is a technique that will help get a little bit more air and loft incorporated into the yarn as it's being spun. So those are my tips for that. Cindy Rice asks, I always seem to overply or underply, and I can never tell which it is until it's washed. Help. Well, Cindy, I'm going to say swatch, because if you take a little bit of it and ply it, take it through to plying and then wash it, and then you're going to see, oh look, it's too much twist or too little twist, and then you'll be able to go back to the spinning and say, this is how much I need, I know for sure. If you want to check it when it's on the wheel, you can take a big long stretch of your spun yarn, let it kind of fold over and loop together, and you're going to be able to see what that looks like in the ply. Take a snippet of it. That you can hang on the wheel and you can refer back to. So if you put it side by side with what you're plying and your twist angles are leaning the same way, you know that you have the same amount of twist in there. If you've got one twist angle that's really leaning in hard and the other one is a lot less of a angle, then you know that you're putting extra twist in there, and so you can back off a little bit. Personally, I like to have a little bit of extra too much twist in my ply. When it's washed, that settles out a little bit, but it gives me a bouncy yarn that I really like. But that again is going to be personal preference. Some people might like to have a little less twist or a little more, or a perfectly exactly balanced even before washing yarn. It's all personal preference. So figure out what you like, do a swatch, and then keep a piece of it as you're continuing through that you can refer back to make sure that as you go you're adjusting things to keep up that same level of twist. The Sarah Lindy asks, any pointers to help plying with a drop spindle? It makes my eye twitch. Okay, so plying with a drop spindle, there's a couple ways you can go about it. I have a couple here. One thing you can do is to devise a lazy Kate to put these into so that they will unwrap together, and then you can just, unwrap them together and ply and have them, twisting down here as you go. Another thing you can do is to put them into a center pole ball, and you can ply from that. And you can put them into a plying ball, which means that you're going to take 2 spindles and take 2 strands, and you're just going to wrap it together. And then as they unwind together, you'll be plying them together. And so it's like they're pre-aligned, and all you're doing is putting twist into it. And that can be a really fast and easy way to do it when you go back to the drop spindle to ply. So figuring out how to manage the fibers that you're plying, I think, is the key to having a successful ply on a spindle, because once they are spun as singles, they've got that energy, and so they can kind of coil up and bounce around and be a little unruly. So figuring out how to manage that kind of depends on your equipment. Like, do you have a ball winder? Do you have multiple spindles? Do you have a lazy Kate kind of situation? I've heard people put them in baskets or cups or different things to hold them down. So yeah, it's just figuring out how you're gonna keep them together so it doesn't make yarn barf before it's plied. All right, let's see if we can get through a couple more. Kristen Knits Socks asks, is it possible to put a bat that Kristen purchased into Rolag form? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Take your bat and then take some knitting needles and sandwich that bat in those knitting needles. Turn it over, maybe once, maybe twice, and then hold down the bat and pull those knitting needles off. Smooth it around a little bit so it holds. Take those knitting needles out. Voila, you have a Rolag. So that will get you a Rolag off of your bat. Gabriella Aaron asks, do you have advice for one who wants to learn spinning but doesn't have many resources? Yes. I fully understand that spinning can be a very expensive hobby and it can be cost prohibitive to getting started. That's why I have some DIY videos on my channel. I really think that spinning is an enjoyable, wonderful, and important hobby that anybody who wants to do it should be able to do it. So with a couple simple tools, you can get started. A dowel rod and either some craft clay or a craft, like for a toy car, a craft wheel. You can put it on that dowel and you can create a spindle, and that is a fairly easy thing to do. Just going to the craft store, most places will have those supplies. The other thing you can do is get some knobs, like dresser pull knobs, and if it has the hardware that goes all the way through it, you can remove that hardware and use the knob as a whirl, and you can do that for supported spinning. I've done all those things. I've spun with them. They work. I wish that I wish that more things were more accessible, but if you're working with the very bare minimum, if I was going to get rid of everything I had and start again with the very bare minimum, I would do a craft wheel spindle or a clay whirl spindle, like Sculpey clay or Fimo clay, the stuff you can bake in the oven, with a dowel rod. For material, I would probably put my money towards good material if possible, because working with crummy material isn't going to give you good practice. It's going to give you practice at being frustrated with crummy material. So I would get good braid or fiber or something if you can, and put my resources towards that. As far as being able to skein it up, you can use your arm and just wrap it this way so you don't have to have a nitty knotty. And yeah, pretty much that will get you there. That will get you spinning. So I hope that helps. That is like the most bare minimum. If I was going to invest in some extra tools, a nitty knotty is convenient, so I do like to have that. You can wind by hand, but a ball winder can be helpful, especially as I mentioned, if you're plying with spindles, a ball winder could be a method of plying onto a spindle. So yeah, I think spindle, good fiber, ball winder, nitty knotty, and that'll get you started for sure. So I would begin there. Jazz Crafts asks if I have tips on making a chunky ply with a small orifice. I have had the frustration of creating a yarn that I was plying that by the time I got to ply, it was too big for my wheel. I did it by going very slowly, and pretty much I would do the length of yarn between the wheel and me, and then I would manually like yank it through the orifice and wind it on there. There's a point where it's just not gonna go through, you know, it's just too big. But if it's too big for your wheel to really pull it up, you can just kind of manually wind it on there. The other thing you can do is just get a large spindle, like a plying spindle, like this, and you can do some bulkier, chunkier stuff. This is the high-low spindle from Shacked. So you can compare like different spindle sizes. So you do some singles here and then ply onto this. You've got more room multiple ones can ply onto here. So that is an idea. If your stuff is just too super chunky, either pull it on there manually or get a bigger spindle that you can ply onto. That can also work. That can be tricky though if you're manipulating, like if the ply is a very manipulated texture kind of thing, the spindle might not be as easy of a solution, but it's possible. Faye the Ruthless asks, how do you manage draw speed and tension? I'm getting an Ashford Traditional and I'm new to wheels. Congratulations on your Ashford Traditional. They're wonderful wheels to start with. I would recommend, I have some videos on this actually about adjusting Scotch tension, and I would go watch those. The key is that you're going to want to find your Goldilocks zone. You don't want it to pull too strongly because it's going to rip stuff out of your hands and you're going to clamp down. It's going to be very stressful to hold on to it while the wheel is trying to suck it up. So you want to turn it down, but you don't want it down so much that it's just in your hands and you're like, come on, get on the wheel, and it's just twisting and twisting. So you want to find that balance where it's taking it up, but only when you relax to let it take up, and you don't have to fight it to hold it out, to hold it back. So that video will help you find that Goldilocks zone. Again, I'll have links to things, but search my channel for Ashford Traditionals. I have a couple videos on that, so hopefully that'll help you out. And a creator who lives here, love the name, asks, what are the differences between spinning from roving, comb top, and a cloud? Good question. So combed top has all of the fibers combed and aligned. Roving has all of the fibers carded and kind of swirled up in a disorganized fashion. And then cloud isn't even carded, it's just picked. And so it's just all floofy everywhere. So the way that we address each of these preparations has to do with how the preparations are kind of organized. So the technical answer to this is that comb top is going to be spun worsted, where it's like a short little inchworm kind of thing and you smooth it down as you go. And then that was the comb top, and then the roving is going to be spun woolen, where you have long stretches of it pulled out and you let the air kind of remain in it. You don't smooth it down, you just kind of pull it out, and you're working with the twist to do that. And then cloud is a little bit more in the range of the roving, or if you get into some of the texture techniques, like cloud is great for a core spin. So those are kind of like the technical answers to that, but you can mix and match, and you can do what you want, and you can have fun, and you can break the rules, because if it's something that relies on physics to work, you're going to figure it out because your yarn will fall apart. And if it's something that is getting you the yarn that you want, it doesn't matter if you're doing a long draw from a comb top. If you're making it work and you get the yarn you want, then that's fine, do that. So I say the technical way to do it sort of with a grain of salt. I would say explore and experiment. And if you want to start with, we know for sure this works because this is the traditional technical way of doing it. Start with comb top is worsted, roving is woolen, and cloud, try a core spin. And then experiment from there. Mix and match, play around, see what you like. Okay friends, I had so many questions. So hopefully we can do this again in the next one. If I didn't get to answer one of your questions, I'm sorry. There were just so many questions. I hope that these were good answers for you, and maybe someone had a similar answer, similar question, and you can apply the answer to what you're working on. I hope you all learned something. But thanks for sending in your questions, and we will definitely do a little bit more of this in the next podcast. All right, friends, we've got one more thing that I want to show you. I was sent some amazing itty bitty spindles by Brea, who is the maker at Studio Spindle. I will have a link for her shop, and I want to show you these because they're absolutely adorable and I love them. I love them. They're tiny. I asked for tiny little Turkish spindles. I want to show you these. They're adorable. So she has named her spindles after different goddesses all, I think. Goddesses, yeah. So this is Hebe, And this spindle, look at this. Isn't that amazing? This tiny little spindle is 6.7 grams. And it is spinning absolute thread. Absolute fine thread. So look at it go. This is just the sweetest little spindle, and I love it so much. And it just goes and goes and goes. I've had some tiny spindles before that it was like, they were like, and done. These go forever. So I'm enjoying these very much. I have them in little tiny to-go bags, and I keep one in my purse. So when I'm waiting, my kids usually, I have something to do with my hands that isn't like bringing a whole project bag. And then, because you all know I love owls, I had to ask for an Athena, because Athena's animal is an owl. And this one I am spinning with some silk. This one is 8.2 grams. Absolute thread. So much fun. I love these. I love these. I love these. I love these. So I'll have a link to her shop. Absolutely worth supporting, especially if you're in the Netherlands. That's where she's from, but she will ship to other places. So just check or ask if you have questions about that. But look at that. Isn't it beautiful? It just goes and goes and goes. It's just the coolest. The coolest. And this thread is just so fine. It's beautiful. Beautiful. She did send these to me, but I'm happy to promote them because I love them. And I wouldn't tell you about them if I didn't. But I do, so here we are. Well, fiber friends, that wraps up our episode for end of September, beginning of October. I would love to know if you have any requests, other questions, things, you know, put all your stuff, your thoughts, your suggestions, whatever, put it in the comments and we'll have some conversations. I love to chat and see what you tell me in the comments. So let's do that. Also, remember to help support the channel. If you want to join the Patreon, I will have a link to that. It's a great way to support the channel. And I know you're probably about ready to click off, but I want to say that my patrons absolutely keep this channel afloat. Like, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing without the support I get from Patreon. It's a lot of work to do these videos and to just offer up all of this spinning knowledge to everyone to access for the cost of watching some ads on YouTube. The ads don't pay very much, and for me to be able to do this in a sustainable way, that support means absolutely everything to me. So I think I need to say it more often, all the time. But patrons, you are absolutely gold. Thank you so much for your support, and if you are interested in supporting the channel and getting some extra content, go check out my Patreon, and of course subscribe so you can see what we're up to next. I'm hoping to get some extra videos out during this sweater weather time. Maybe you're sitting around crafting and need something to listen to or watch or enjoy. Hopefully I can provide a little of that. So make sure you're subscribed and look forward to some extra videos coming up very soon. I will wish you all happy spinning, knitting, weaving, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next one.